Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Weekly Forecast. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification down below because there are lots of exciting stuff that are going to be coming on this channel, so make sure to stay tuned. Okay, let's jump right into it. As usual, we're going to be starting with the Dixie, and because it's the first forecast of the week, we're going to be starting with the weekly time frame. So taking a look at the weekly time frame, we already know that we broke swing structure at this point. We also already know that we tapped into the discount area and we broke internal structure to the upside. This is usually a confirmation of bullish realignment in this case, okay? Now we've marked out this range of price action as an internal retest on the weekly time frame. We know that we've already tapped into the discount area of this internal retest, and we've tapped into a very important demand area on the weekly time frame. And since tapping into this area, we've seen a reasonably good reaction, and we've seen this massive bullish candle forming. Okay, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens this week, but the expectation is that we might actually see bullish realignments from this point, and we might see price eventually take this high and perhaps sometime in the future take this one. So that is the expectation. Okay, let's go over to the daily time frame quickly. Now on the daily time frame, we've also broken swing structure, right? Since the pullback started. Since we started the pullback, we've seen the first break of swing structure on the daily time frame. We've seen a pullback phase initiated after this change of character, and this second change of character confirming it, right? We pulled back for a while, and at this point we have finally broken internal structure. Now if you saw the previous video, I think the previous weekly forecast, where we talked about the possibility of price reacting off of this demand zone and eventually breaking internal structure, that's exactly what we've seen. Now if you saw the weekly update from last week's Thursday, where we talked about the possibility of price reacting off of this flip zone, because flip zones are really important reactionary points in the market. We talked about the possibility of there being a reaction here and a possible continuation. So far what we've seen is price has reacted from this flip zone, and we've seen price essentially break this new, and so there's been a break of this internal high. So a new internal high has formed. So there's every possibility that this could then be our new internal strong low. We might see price break properly come next week, retest, and then continue upwards. Okay. However, keep an open mind. Okay. There's every possibility that we might still see a deeper retest, but I think from what we've seen so far, we can really conclude that, yeah, I think we're pretty much done with the retest, and for the fact that we've also tapped into the discount area. Yeah, so let's take a quick look at the 4-hour time frame. All right, so if we take this out on the 4-hour time frame, if you watch the weekly update that was posted on Thursday, where we talked about how price liquidated this strong high and how the immediate break of internal structure on the 4-hour was a confirmation of this liquidation. And then we talked about how, because we were pulling into this daily demand zone, we talked about how this 4-hour liquidation and immediate break of internal structure, which in most cases would be a really good sell signal. For me, it's a really good model, bearish model. But we talked about how that might just be to facilitate a pullback into the discount area of this range of internal daily price action, and most likely then see a continuation. And the really interesting thing is that, okay, here we've seen a tap into this overlap zone. If you've seen enough of our videos, you're going to know how much I love overlap zones. The reason I love overlap zones is because, again, they're really important reactionary zones. They're really important zones where price is likely to react from in the marketplace. Okay, so and that's exactly what we've seen. Price has reacted, and so far we've broken internal structure to the upside, right? So it's also safe to say that, yeah, perhaps this is in itself a liquidation. So a liquidation, immediate liquidation, and now we're seeing sort of like a continuation to the upside. Okay, so that's pretty much that. If you see the previous videos, you're going to know why we have this here and what could possibly happen with the strong 4-hour swing high. Okay, so that's pretty much that for the Dixie. We're going to be taking a quick look at GBPUSD, and as always, we're going to be starting from the weekly time frame. Okay, now on the weekly time frame, we already know that we broke swing structure at this point. We already know that we've been pulling back. We pulled back for a while, rather. We already also know that we broke internal structure at this point, which was a potential confirmation of bearish realignment on the weekly time frame. Now we marked out this weekly flip zone. Remember why we like flip zones. And so far, we're seeing a really good reaction from this weekly flip zone, which might eventually see price break this new internal low and retest, and we could possibly see something of this nature. Okay, let's take a look at the note I wrote here. Pretty brief. We're seeing a strong reaction from flip zone as projected. That's shaking now. Okay, yeah, so let's take a quick look at the daily time frame. Okay, now on the daily time frame, we know that we broke swing structure at this point. We know that we initiated this pullback phase, and we've been in a pullback for a minute. Now, as we talked about in the weekly forecast and the weekly updates from last week, we haven't exactly broken internal structure to the downside. So the internal structure on the daily time frame is still bullish. So the expectation is that this is a strong low and that we're going to target this week high. Okay, and then we talked about how we might see certain things on the lower time frame that might encourage us to potentially form or generate ideas that might point to this internal low breaking eventually. But at the moment, that hasn't happened, and the expectation is that this internal low is a strong low. And that's as simple as that, really. Okay. Right, so let's take a quick look at the 4-hour time frame. So now on the 4-hour time frame, we know that this break of internal structure on the daily time frame also happened to be the break of swing structure on the 4-hour time frame. So the 4-hour swing structure is still bullish, and now we've tapped into an overlap zone. Now, if you saw the weekly update video on Thursday, I think at that point we talked about how we had broken internal structure at this point. We had tapped into this daily demand zone, but we hadn't had any confirmation yet of bullish realignment. And we talked about how this was the strong internal high, on the 4-hour, and how it should be respected. And that's exactly what's happened, right? We saw price tap into this supply zone, and now we've seen a break of this weak internal low. We tapped into an overlap zone. We're seeing some really interesting reactions. So now we can start to slow down on the shorts a bit, and we might start expecting that there's a possibility that price might eventually break this high. Okay. And that's pretty much that for GBPUSD. For our internal is still bearish, indicating that we're still in a swing pullback phase. However, we might see that change very soon as price is reaching extreme demand areas. So that's that. Finally, last but not least, Euro US dollar. As always, we start on the weekly time frame. Okay, so on the weekly time frame, again, similar to the GBPUSD pair, we broke swing structure at this point. Now, the reason I really like the price action on Euro US dollar is that of the two pairs, right now, it's the one that's giving the most clear signals of bearish continuation. And what do I mean? We broke internal structure at this point, indicating a possible end to this pullback phase, right? And since then, we've tapped into the premium area of this little internal pullback phase here, and we're seeing some really massive reactions, very encouraging signs that we could possibly be realigning bearish from this point. Okay, I mean, right now we're currently in this weekly demand zone, so let's scale down to the lower time frames and see exactly what we're dealing with. On the daily time frame, we broke swing structure at this point. Okay, it's pretty much so basically that weekly internal break of structure happens to be the daily swing break of structure. Now we talked about this multiple times. Because the market is fractal, it's one of the things that we see many times applying this mechanical structure mapping strategy. So we've seen a break of internal structure on the daily time frame, indicating that this pullback might be over. This is the zone that we're currently in. Most likely what I expect to see is, and again, remember, we've said before, when we are in a pullback, when we are in a bearish condition, okay, demand zones mostly serve to facilitate pullbacks into supply zones, which would then most likely cause a continuation. And that's basically how price flows from demand to supply to demand, depending on what market condition, what market phase we're in, essentially. Okay. So yeah, we're expecting a potential pullback from this zone. And if we take a quick look at the 4-hour time frame, what we're going to see is that price has liquidated this high, but it didn't exactly hold. So we're seeing a deeper pullback. Now on Thursday, we talked about how this change of character might be the beginning of the pullback phase. But what we've ended up seeing is a liquidation of this strong high and a continuation to the downside. Now there are two models that I actually use to confirm the start of pullbacks or the potential start of pullbacks, so that I can take counter trend trades or ideas, especially when we have an extended range like this, or fairly extended range. Most likely I'll probably talk about these and two models in a later video. Okay, right now we've seen a liquidation of this strong high, and if there's a break of this internal structure, then for me that would be a confirmation of potential pullback. We could look for some short-term bullish ideas. Okay, and that's pretty much that, guys. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, hit the subscribe button, like and comment below. Comment what you think we should talk about. Comment what you'd like to see. Comment your thoughts. Have a great week, and yeah, cheers.